Once again, thank you everyone for joining. We will begin with our session. We have these sessions every Friday, and as ProComm Technologies, we always focused on equipping our clients, you, our valued partners, with information that will assist you in making decisions for your businesses. And today we are looking at privileged access management. We all know how critical cybersecurity is to any organization, any business. And recently, we are seeing a number of clients putting up solutions to comply with the Data Protection Act, among other acts that are being released in different countries, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Botswana, South Africa. And one of the requirements of the Data Protection Acts would be satisfied by adopting a privileged access management solution. And as ProComm, we want to share this information with you so that as you work out your strategy, your cybersecurity strategy, and also to meet up with these requirements, you also have these solutions that you can leverage on. So we have invited one of our strategic vendors, CyberArk, to do a presentation on privileged access management. And this will help you and enlighten you in terms of how you can adopt privileged access management solution as part of the cybersecurity solutions that you adopt in your organization. It has become even more critical. Like I said, when you are required to comply with different acts in different territories. So it's important, and I hope this presentation today with CyberArk will be valuable. And after this presentation, please feel free to ask questions. But also, if you would like us to have a one-on-one with your organization around CyberArk privileged access management, we will be able to set up a one-to-one session with you and your team members, and actually look at how you as an organization can adopt privileged access management, popularly known as PEM. It's my pleasure to introduce Felipe, who will then introduce our speaker today. Felipe is from CyberArk, and Felipe, over to you.
Thank you, Becky, and thank you to our esteemed customers and colleagues. I'm sure I've met many of you in the previous years, but exactly like Becky said, it's very important from a compliance perspective. We're seeing more and more organizations being compromised because of not having sufficient control over their identities, the identities that are accessing their assets or their systems or their networks. So it's and we're seeing more and more the vulnerabilities, they're being attacked via the identities, and this is where we come in, where we are able to assist you and guide you and just give you the information and the tools that you require to be able to have these controls over your security from a compliance auditing perspective. So we thank ProComm for arranging this and making this possible. ProComm have been our esteemed strategic partner for some time now, and we hope to grow in the region with them. So with that being said, as Becky mentioned, after the session, we're going to hand over to Mohammed Nabil now to take you through. But please keep your questions and your thoughts and statements till the end, and we will address them. Thank you very much. Over to you, Nabil. You're on mute.
Sorry.
There we go.
Okay, perfect. Okay, let me share my presentation. Give me a second. Can you see my screen?
Yes, it's come through.
Okay, perfect. Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Mohammed Nabil. I'm a solution engineer from CyberArk, covering Middle East and Africa, and I'll be leading today's webinar. As Becky and Philip mentioned, we'll have a Q&A dedicated after the session, after the presentation, but you will have Q&A button to use in Teams. You can, of course, submit your question anytime during the presentation, and once we're done with the presentation, we will start answering these questions. So for today's webinar, we are talking about securing the heart of the enterprise, which is basically the privilege of privilege accounts that are distributed across your environment. And the first couple of slides, we will cover why any organization would require to have a BAM solution in place. So as you can see here on the screen, in today's typical enterprise network, you have a variety of privilege accounts. So you have your standard legacy IT administrator. This is your Windows administrator, Linux administrator, database, network and security administrators. But in today's environment, it's not only that these users are your privileged users. We have other categories. Starting with the DevOps, so you might have a developer who has access to your source code, and by that, having access to source code, he can impact your environment, he can impact your applications, he can insert a malicious payload in your application. We have applications and machines, so in any environment, you will have some sort of automation, some sort of scripts, RPA tools, and these tools and these automation scripts will require privileged accounts in order to perform the intended job. You have third party. You have external users connecting to your environments, maybe to do some sort of application support, some maintenance, or maybe to upgrade one of your systems. And last but not least, we have the workforce. So workforce, they are not IT users, but still they have access to sensitive assets, sensitive systems. As an example, the organization might have some sort of a social media account on Twitter or on LinkedIn. Whoever is managing these accounts, he's not an IT admin, but he still has access to one of the most sensitive assets, which is your front end via the social media accounts. So all of these are considered as privileged users, and they require to implement the right security solutions to protect the environment and protect the organization from any negative impact. Here we have what we call it the attack lifecycle. This is basically the road, the step-by-step of how an attacker might be able to complete an attack against your environment. And here we have two types of attackers. We have an external attacker. This is someone who doesn't have access to your environment. He's trying to breach your perimeter utilizing a variety of attacks via maybe phishing attacks, web-based attacks, social engineering attack. He's trying to get a foothold into your environment. And we have the internal attacker. This is someone who is already part of the organization, already part of your domain, and for some reason, he has malicious intentions. It doesn't matter if it's an external user or internal attacker. They will start by having limited privileges, and they start escalating the privileges, moving from one machine to another, moving from one server to another, until they reach what is known as tier 0 systems. These systems are any systems that might have information of value, like employees' personal identifiable information. Maybe it has some sort of financial data. And the last step in that attack lifecycle is to exfiltrate the data or maybe perform some sort of denial of service attack. What BAM Solutions does in a nutshell, it will break that attack lifecycle in its most critical point, which is privilege elevation. So CyberArk will not prevent your external attackers from getting a foothold in your environment. There are other solutions to protect you from these attacks. Like, for example, you have a mail gateway to protect you from phishing-based attacks. You have your web application firewall to protect you from web-based attack. But in case the attack was successful and someone was able to get his hand on one of your machines, or if you have an internal attacker, the idea of having a BAM is that the attacker will not be able to move forward with his attack, because any attack of any kind, of any vector, in order to succeed, it will require credentials. It will require a pair of username and password. And what BAM does, it will import, secure, and manage these credentials, so the attacker will not be able to move forward with the attack, and basically it will kill the attack lifecycle. This is what we do as a BAM solution. A bit of history about CyberArk. We were the first vendor to coin the BAM in the field. We were the first BAM vendor in the market, and this was like 23 years now. We have been recognized as a leader when it comes to privileged access management, with more than 8,000 customers globally, and more than 50% of the Fortune 500 utilizing the solution. There are 3 advisory companies that release reports, analytic reports on the BAM solutions. First, we have Gartner, and this is the Gartner report in 2021. And you can see here, this is where CyberArk stands when it comes to privileged access management. We have been recognized as a leader with the most completion of vision and ability to execute. Next, we have Gartner 2022, and you can see CyberArk is still in the same position in the Gartner Magic Quadrant. Apart from Gartner, we have Forrester Wave, with CyberArk being a leader with the strongest current offering. And last but not least, we have KuppingerCole, with CyberArk being recognized as an overall leader in the report for 2021. And for 2023, which was released 6-7 months back. So this is CyberArk, and this is what we do. CyberArk started as a privileged access management 20+ years back. But since then, we have developed more solutions. We have acquired other solutions to complete our identity security platform. So we have mainly 3 categories. We have access, we have privilege, and we have DevSecOps. We have a variety of solutions. So for example, we have a solution dedicated for enforcing least privilege on the endpoint level to enforce the user to be able to access specific applications and to perform specific actions, even if it's not an admin. We have a solution for the cloud customers. So any customer who's utilizing Azure, AWS, or some other cloud environments, we can also enforce the least privilege for these cloud tenants. We have our workforce identity and customer identity solutions. These are our single sign-on, multi-factor authentication solution, lifecycle management, and workforce password manager. And we also have a dedicated solutions for secret management, for legacy server-based applications, as well as the modern container-based application for CI/CD pipeline tools and Kubernetes-based application. But for the sake of today's webinar, basically, we're going to cover BAM for internal users and BAM for external users. Starting with BAM for internal users. Our solution is a software-based solution. It can be deployed literally on any environment. It can be deployed as self-hosted on premises, in even an air-gapped environment with no internet access. It can be deployed as a hybrid environment across on-premises and cloud, or it can also be consumed as a SaaS model. From feature-wise, we have mainly 3 features. We have credential management and discovery, session isolation and recording, and remediation of anomalous action. Starting with the first feature, which is credential management. As you see here on the right side of the screen, in any organization, you have a variety of systems, and these systems have different accounts. So we have root account on Unix, we have administrator on Windows, we have enable on Cisco, you have sys account on Oracle database, and for any administrator to access these systems, they know the username, they know the password, they can connect to these systems anytime and do anything. So, for example, if a user wants to connect to a Unix system, he will open PuTTY, Secure CRT, or some other terminal application. He will enter username, IP address, he will enter the password, and he will be able to log into the system. But once we have BAM in place, basically what our solution does is that we have a component called password manager. And what that password manager does is that it will communicate to all of these systems. It will start generating random password and rotate these credentials one by one. Here you have the flexibility of controlling how frequent the password manager will rotate the password, depending on the severity and sensitivity of the system. So maybe for one account, it will be rotated every couple of hours, another one every couple of days, every couple of weeks. You can also control the password complexity. So maybe for one account, it will be only 8 characters. For another account, it will be a bit lengthy, maybe 16 characters with multiple uppercase, multiple lowercase, and multiple special characters. So all of these are controllable aspects of the password rotation. And the idea is that all of these credentials will be rotated and no one will know the actual password. Every single password will be imported to CyberArk and it will be hidden from the end user utilizing the system. Within the credential management, we perform 3 steps. First is the discovery. So the customer doesn't have to import every single account individually. We have a discovery engine that will communicate to your domain controller, get a list of all of your computer machines, and one by one, it will start discovering privileged and non-privileged accounts. Same applies for Unix and Linux. We can start scanning your system, discover the account, the relevant password, and even if you are using SSH key-based authentication, we can discover SSH keys. And once the discovery is done, we will import the account to our safe here and enforce the role-based access control. So if you are a Windows administrator, you will be able to see only Windows accounts. If you are a Linux administrator, you will only see the relevant accounts to your job and to your title. And of course, once the importing is done, the management will start by rotating these credentials as a verification that the password is intact. And of course, if the password is not intact, we can reconcile it. So this is the first function, password management. And as I mentioned, all of these passwords will be hidden from the end user and no one will know the password. So the question here is that how can I, as an admin, how can I access my system without knowing the password? This is where the second feature comes into play, which is the session management. As I mentioned, if you don't have a BAM solution and you want to access this target system, and I took an example for Linux, you have PuTTY here installed in the end user machine. You will write the username, IP address, and then the password, and you will be able to connect to the target system. This is the before having a BAM. Once you have BAM deployed in your environment, you will have 2 options. One option is through the web browser. You will access the front end for our solution, and this can, as I mentioned, it can be on premises, it can be hybrid, or it can be cloud based. You will get the authentication prompt, and this can be against your Active Directory, it can be against LDAP, Radius, SAML, or some other authentication source that you are using. And once the authentication part is done, there will be an MFA phase. It doesn't matter which BAM solution we're talking about, multi-factor authentication is a must. You have to have an MFA. From CyberArk perspective, we have our own MFA, which is bundled free of charge as part of our BAM solution, or if a customer has his own MFA solution, we can integrate with it. Once the authentication part is done, multi-factor authentication is succeeded, the user will be presented with all the accounts that he is authorized to use. And for each and every of these accounts, he will have a connect button. He will click that connect button. CyberArk, and specifically our session manager, will inject the credentials on behalf of the user and will allow him access to his account seamlessly. This is one option. The second option is that if a user he's used to use native tools like RDP managers, Mobile Extreme, Secure CRT, the user doesn't have to go to the browser. He can still use the applications installed on his machine to connect to the target system. How we are doing it? We are agentless solution. We do not need to have an agent on the end user machine or on the server side. What we have is that we have our session manager, which acts like a proxy gateway for all the secure sessions. And utilizing that session manager, we'll be able to inject the credential without revealing or exposing the password. We'll be able to record each and every activity the user is performing, and we can also take an enforcement action. This is how the recordings will look like. And here we have an example for a database administrator utilizing SQL Plus to access Oracle database. And from an audit point of view, this is how the recording will look like. You have a split screen, you have a video recording on the right side with every single mouse movement, mouse clicks, every keystroke, but also on the left side here, you have event by event recording. So this user, whatever he's performing here as actual commands, it will also be recorded in a searchable format on the left side. Here he did an update query, update SQL query. It will be shown as a video, but will also show him as an event. And the auditor will have two fields that he can use to filter the recording. So he can filter based on the username, based on the IP address, on the target system, but he can also filter on the action. So for example, if you want to see who opened the computer management on Windows, who executed the reboot command on Linux, who executed that specific SQL query on a database, all of these are searchable. So CyberArk will go through all the recording and it will show you that this user did that specific action on that system at that specific timing. Not only that, we can take enforcement actions. So for example, if you don't want someone to open the computer management, we can do that. If you don't want them to access a specific interface on your core switch, we can do that. If they don't want him to be able to reboot a Unix system, we can prevent him from doing so. So this is the second component, which is session management. One of the main reasons why CyberArk has been recognized as a leader by Gartner, Forrester Wave, KuppingerCole is our integration list. CyberArk, as of today, it supports more than 950 integrations out of the box. So what does this mean to you, to the organization? It means that the implementation phase, it will be a lot shorter than any other solution. It will make life much easier for the operation team to interact with the system, maybe modify one of the implemented systems, or maybe add a new one. So just to name a few, here you can see what we can support out of the box. So we have FortiGate, Fortinet, ForScout, we have RSA, SailPoint, SAP, we have ServiceNow, we have Atos, we have AlgoSec. Just to name a few. So as I mentioned, we have more than 950, and all of these can be accessed on our website, marketplace.cyberark.com. It will have all our integrations. So feel free to go there and check what kind of systems that we support. And even if you have any systems that we do not support out of the box, so for example, you have a homegrown web application that has a credential that you need to us as a PAM to manage, it is super easy to do so. We have multiple applications and a very well-detailed framework that will allow you to add any system, even if it's not supported out of the box. So I mentioned we have three features when it comes to CyberArk PAM. Credential management to rotate and manage accounts. We have session manager to inject the credentials, record the session, and take enforcement actions. And last, we have the threat analytics. The idea of having threat analytics is to detect and mitigate abnormal activities. One of the use cases that we cover as part of our threat analytics is behavior detection. I'll give you an example. Maybe in your organization, you are using Microsoft DNS to manage your internal DNS entries. So you have someone from your DNS team accessing your domain controller from a specific time, from a specific subnet at a specific timing, and he start editing the records, maybe adding one or modify one. This is what he does. So CyberArk will create a baseline, a digital fingerprint for each and every user accessing the systems through the PAM. So suddenly, if that user come from a different subnet at different timing, instead of opening the DNS manager on the domain controller, he start opening the Active Directory users and computers. He start opening the shared folders. So for us, this is a deviation from the baseline. We can alert on it. So we can send an email to the SOC team. We can send log entry to your SIEM solution. And we can also take a suspension and termination action to that user access. This is one example. Another example is that if you have someone who doesn't have a malicious intention, but he feels like PAM is restricting him from doing his job. So he's trying to bypass the PAM. He's trying to create a backdoor account. He's trying to rotate one of the imported account. So CyberArk will be able to detect all of these attempts, and it will be able to mitigate it. These are just two use cases out of the very broad use cases that we support. We are doing it, again, agentless, so we don't have an agent. How we are doing it is that we will receive logs from your network devices, Active Directories, security devices, and even the SIEM solution. We do not only send logs to SIEM solution, but we also receive it. So it is bi-directional integration. And this part, these kind of detections, it is all automated. You don't have to configure it. Once we start receiving the logs, we'll start to analyze it, and we'll start providing you with these kind of insights. The threat analytics is powered by our AI and machine learning on the back end, so it learns with time and it adapts to the end user activities and end user actions. This is the automated part. But we also know that each and every customer has his own kind of use cases and his own enforcement requirements. For that, we have a manual policy creation. We support 5 categories. We have SSH, we have Windows titles, we have SQL, we have secure copy protocol, and we have keystrokes. So using these categories, the customer can create his own rules, his own policies using regular expressions. He can assign a specific score to the end user activity, and he can take an action of alert, suspend, or terminate. From an audit point of view, you will see all the end users with the relevant risk score, and you will have 3 buttons to use. You have the play recording to see why that user got that high risk score. You can export the recording outside the PAM, maybe to play it in a meeting, and this is a standard AVI extension. So you don't have to access the PAM in order to play the recording. And if you don't want to export the actual video file, you can export it as a text file containing the activities done by that end user. So this is the manual policy creation. Apart from the credential management, session management, and threat analytics, CyberArk is also offering a free of charge tool called Discovery and Audit. This tool is considered as a vulnerability assessment scanner for your privileged accounts. So as I mentioned, it is a scanner, so it will scan your environment. It will detect privileged and non-privileged accounts on Windows, Unix, Linux, Mac. It will also show you the risk status related to these accounts. So from that scan, it will show you that there is one account, for example, was created 1 year back. Last time it was used was maybe 11 months back. Last time it was rotated was 10 months back. So this account for 10 months has the same password, waiting idle, no one is using it. It's just waiting for an attacker to go grab it and use it to attack your environment. So CyberArk will be able to identify all of these accounts. It will be able to show you if any account is susceptible to intel-based attack, like pass the hash, like golden ticket attack. It will show you attack maps. So here on the right side of the screen, this is a visual representation of all the Windows machines we were able to detect. So here, if you select one of the systems, it will show you that this system, we're able to find 4 hashes for 4 administrator accounts. Sorry. So if someone was able to access this system and maybe do some sort of a memory dump, they will be able to move laterally and vertically to all of these machines, including the domain controller. So this is one example. It also applies for Unix and Linux systems. So it will show you the discovered SSH keys, password hashes, password lengths, and the relation between private and public keys across your environment. So as I mentioned, this is a free tool that you can utilize today as part of your evaluation to PAM solutions. You can utilize it as part of your implementation. You can run it before and after to see where you were and where you are. And of course, you can run it every couple of months, depending on your vulnerability assessment process. So this is the discovery and audit tool. And that concludes the PAM for internal user. And now we have PAM for external users. To manage and provide access to an external user to one of the systems in an enterprise environment, the organization have multiple options to use from. The most commonly used option is VPN. If you want to give an external user access to one of your systems here, you will create an account on your VPN gateway, like Palo Alto Global Protect, FortiGate VPN, Pulse Secure, F5 VPN, whatever the VPN gateways that you are using. And you will ask the external user to install the agent, and he'll be able to connect to your network via the VPN agent, and then he will be able to connect to your target system. Another option is to maybe utilize a VDI solution like Citrix. Maybe you will prepare and ship a corporate laptop for them to use as an external user. So these are the conventional approaches. The problem with these conventional approaches is that it's not optimal solutions. So let's take VPN as an example. For VPN, you have to manually create the account on your VPN gateway. You have to create the required access list and firewall rules to prevent that external user from getting excessive access. You need to monitor his activity utilizing something like syslog or some native protocol. You need to have a way or a process to deactivate or deprovision the account once the external user access is no longer needed. So all of these are manual processes. It is prone to human error and it's not optimal. Same applies for password-based authentication. You have no idea who is accessing your environment because someone might be able to steal the external user access and he will be able to infiltrate your organization. So these are the conventional approaches. CyberArk provides a different approach. So we can provide zero trust access, which means that we, instead of providing a network level access via VPN, we are providing application level access. So you don't have to create access lists or firewall rules for each and every external partner. It is biometric MFA'd, so you are 100% sure that the external user is the one who you want to actually connect to your environment. It is just-in-time provisioning, so it means that the account will be created, disabled on the fly automatically based on a pre-configured policy. And of course, instead of relying on something like syslog, you have an actual video recording and actual event-by-event logs of what that external user is performing. So this is what we do. how that works. Here on the right side of the screen, you have your data center. So you have your core segment and you have your DMZ. The PAM solutions, in general, it is deployed on your core network here. And you have your internal user utilizing the PAM solution to access the systems, and it works as intended. Now you have an external user that you want to give him just-in-time access to one of your systems. How it works is that first you need to deploy a connector on your DMZ. And the difference between that connector and your VPN gateway is that this connector is not actually published. It's not allowed for external access. It doesn't accept inbound access. It just requires outbound access from the connector to the outside. So this is the first thing that you need to do. The second thing is that you will have a web portal here that you utilize to invite, authenticate the external users. So you will access that web portal and you will have a form to fill. In that form, you need to define external user first name, last name, phone number, email ID. You will define what system or systems you want that external user to have access to. You will define for how long. So is it only 2 hours because he's doing a support ticket? Is it 2 days to deploy a new feature, or is it like a full implementation and he need access for 2 months? So you can't control that. Not only that, you can control what time, what day of a week and what time of a day the user need to have access. So maybe you can restrict access between Monday to Wednesday, between 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. All of these are controllable. So once you fill all the information, you will click send, and that user will receive an invite on his email instructing him to install an application on his mobile device. Once he installs the application, he will need to perform a one-time registration. He will need to enter his first name, last name, and phone number, and this information, it must match whatever the administrator add to the form here. If it doesn't match, the registration will fail. Once the user registers himself, every time he needs to access one of the systems here, what he needs to do is that he will open a web portal on his workstation. He will open the application on his device, authenticate himself against his biometric like Face ID or fingerprint, and then scan that QR code, same as we do with WhatsApp Web. Once he does that, a TLS tunnel will be created between him and the connector. Another TLS tunnel will be created between the connector and the PAM solution. And at the end, he will be able to access that system via the PAM from the internet. And here, you don't have to publish any ports. You don't have to publish any protocols. It is all the system. It doesn't matter which system. Is it Windows, RDP, Linux, SSH, database, web application? Everything will be accessed within the web browser itself, utilizing HTML5 gateway. You will have full visibility of his actions. You can even take control over a session. You can suspend or terminate his access anytime you want. And once the time expires, so for example, you give him access for 3 hours. Once the 3 hours are over, the session will be terminated and his account will be deactivated. So this is basically how the external connection works. This solution, it works as for external users, but it also works for internal users who are working from home or they are remote users. With that, I'm concluding my presentation, and now it is time to check the questions and answer these questions.
Yeah, Nabil, thank you. Thank you very much. We do have some questions that have come in via the chat. First and foremost, going back to Pam, is from Sodaba, who's asking, please explain how CyberArk handles service accounts.
Very good question. Okay, so CyberArk supports service accounts out of the box. So let me show you what service accounts we support. Okay, so this document, basically, it covers what we call it non-human access, because service account at the end, it is a non-human access. So CyberArk, as part of the license, it covers these kind of use cases as part of the license with no limitation on the number of service accounts. So we're covering Windows services, Windows scheduled task, Windows IS application pool, configuration file, private SSH keys, account stored in database, Windows registry. So I'll give you an example. CyberArk, as part of the discovery that we mentioned before, it will discover there's one account on your domain controller called SVC, for example. Okay, SVC underscore reporting. So it will detect that this account is created on the domain controller, and it is also used by one service in one machine called maybe reporting .local.windows 2021, something like that, a server. Okay, CyberArk will basically map the account on the domain controller with the account created and used on the service on that server, and it can rotate the account at the same time on the domain controller and that service, and even that service, if it requires a restart, CyberArk will be able to restart it. So this is just an example. And since I believe there's a question on the licensing part, our license is based on number of users. So let me just open give me a second. Okay, let me open my notepad. Okay, so as I mentioned, CyberArk license is based on number of users. And here we have two varieties or two options for users. One is internal user and one is external user. Internal user, this is someone who is part of the domain, is part of the company, he needs permanent access. External user, this is someone as a third party who need temporary access for a specific amount of time and for a specific system. For these users, you have unlimited number of accounts, unlimited number of systems, and you have unlimited number of service accounts, the one that I mentioned. So all of these are unlimited. But this is only one part of the non-human access. It's not only that, you have also other applications that you want to, instead of rotating the passwords, you need to eliminate it. So we have a solution called secret management. Of course, this is a topic for another day, but for secret management, we have different options to eliminate the password in web application configuration or in application files in general. We have the way to rotate and eliminate the passwords in your CI/CD pipeline tools like Jenkins, Ansible, Puppet. We can eliminate the password in your Kubernetes. So this is, of course, as I mentioned, a topic for another day. So these are the license, but it's not only about getting a PAM. CyberArk does a lot more than that, and it is also part of the license. So as part of the license, you'll get the following. Okay, so you will get these three, which basically these are what we call it core PAM, including credential management, session management, analytics. You will get the vendor PAM, which I mentioned about sending an invite to an external user with biometric MFA. But on top of it, you're getting single sign-on. And this is a full-fledged single sign-on solution that you can utilize to access all of your applications on a single consolidated portal without the hassle of keeping track of which password is used in which application. So this is the single sign-on feature. We have Workforce Password Manager. If you are familiar with LastPass or KeePass, these are considered as a personal password manager, but in that case, we have an enterprise level workforce password managers that you can utilize to store and manage business-related credentials. We have an MFA solution, and this is a full-fledged MFA solution, and it is also considered as a leader in the Gartner Magic Quadrant. We support the broadest range of MFA factors, including push notification, passwordless authentication utilizing QR code, OTPs that can be delivered as an email, as an SMS, as an automated voice call. We support hard tokens. We have also identity flows, which is an automation tool that can interact and integrate with multiple solutions via API. So you can take an information from one machine and take an action on another machine based on the API information. So all of these are part of the same license. So for example, if you have 10 internal users and 10 external users, it means that you have 10 users for the privilege access management, 10 users for the vendor PAM who can access the external systems, and you have 10 SSO, 10 MFA, 10 workforce password manager, and you have a limited version of the identity flows. So this is how we manage service accounts, and this is basically our licensing model. Any questions? Anyone?
Just to add to Tembo, thank you for that, Nabil. Tembo was asking around the licensing model, which is exactly what you addressed, as well as Tembo, just for your sake, it's subscription-based or SaaS, and the support options are included in the licensing, as well as your training, administrator training. We do offer training courses, which are available online or instructor-led. I hope that answered your question. Tembo, please go ahead. Thank you. Tembo's question is answered. Any other questions from the audience?
Felipe, we just may come in, obviously, with the interactions we have with some of our customers, some of the questions we obviously get regarding CIEM solutions. How can CyberArk help companies comply with the Data Protection Act? I think it's one of those questions that we get most of the time.
Okay, perfect. So when it comes to identity and access management, CIEM solution, we can integrate with any CIEM solution that you might have or you might consider. Of course, our main integration with SailPoint, which they are a leader when it comes to CIEM, as we are a leader when it comes to PAM. Utilizing both PAM and CIEM, you're getting the full IGA, the identity and governance access. So our CIEM solution will be able to get the information from your HR system deployed across your environment, integrate with the PAM solution to provide access to your employees in a just-in-time manner. It will do access certification to ensure that this user still need access to that system based on his job requirement. And basically having both from SailPoint and CyberArk and having that IGA, you will be able to adhere to the local compliance requirement, not only the local, almost every single compliance requirement worldwide can be adhered and can be covered by the combination of CyberArk and the CIEM solution. We are an enterprise level solution. We have been in the market for more than 20 years. So whatever aspect of a regulation that is related to PAM, I'm 99% sure that we can cover it.
Okay, thank you for that answer. Then the second question, does CyberArk include MFA, and does this MFA also apply to service accounts?
Okay, service account, as I mentioned, it is non-human identity. So we cannot enforce MFA on non-human user because he will not be able to answer the MFA challenge. The MFA, it comes as part of the license, as I mentioned. So if you have 10 internal admins, you will have 10 free of charge MFA licenses. And these MFA licenses, they are not limited to be used with the PAM. You can also utilize it for any other system. You can use the MFA to be applied for any web application, for any system that supports Radius or supports SAML. So it is a full-fledged MFA that is not limited to the PAM.
Oh, okay. Thank you for that answer also.
My pleasure.
Okay. I'm not so sure from the...
I see another question on chat.
Salome is asking, kindly clarify on how users certification is done on the solution and how often.
Do you talk about like access certification, like a manager run a certification campaign and he's saying that this user still needs that access, or what do you mean by certification?
Or it means training, training certification.
It could be training, yeah, on how users certification is done. So that would be done either online, and it's instructor-led or self-paced solution. And how often? I'm assuming every 24 months, Nabil, maybe correct me.
Yeah, so it depends on the certification level. So we have 4 levels. The first one is that it can be done online as long as you have access to our portal. It is free of charge. And the other 3, they are actual person view exams that you need to book and go. So it depends on which certification we're talking about. It might have like 2 years renewal. And all the information, it is there on our portal, CyberArk.com. You can go there. You have a training portion that you need to access, and it has all the information.
Thank you. Salome, I hope that's answered your question. Please bring them on.
I hope it did. One of the challenges that we have seen customers have is basically control of these privileged accounts, the visibility in terms of which accounts actually have got privileged access. And then the other challenge also is around auditing, whereby customers are saying, if somebody had a privileged access, what actually did they connect to do? And I believe through this presentation, we have seen how these challenges actually can be met. And you can imagine in most of our customer environments, they are quite big. And as a cybersecurity manager, a CISO, and so on, you probably worried about who has access to what accounts are out there which have got access. And I'm happy to say, this solution actually will give you that control and confidence that you actually have control and visibility of your environment. You will also be able to meet the auditing requirements that you may have as an organization and be able to audit every session. So this is quite an excellent solution, and we urge our customers to adopt the solution. Like I said at the beginning, please reach out to us, your account manager, to myself. Let's set up a session between CyberArk and your organization, and we look at your environment, and we will give expert advice in terms of how do you approach the privileged access management solution and identity access as well. So please reach out to us. We will give you all that consultation, no obligation, and also be able to run, like they say, the DNA, discover all the privileged accounts that you might have in your environment, and we'll be able to, you can then have that visibility that you require, and you can have the confidence and the control of your ICT assets. Maybe a closing word from CyberArk, and then we will close the session.
Yeah, thank you, Becky. And just quickly, I just want to leave you with one thing is, you will find there's other OEMs that do privileged access management, but their licensing model would be to license the assets or the systems. Take note that ours, we license the user, meaning that the user, as Nabil mentioned, has control and access of many assets. And you, as business owners and business individuals, what will happen is in 3 or 5 years, how many assets or how many systems do you add to your environment as opposed to administrators with privilege rights? So just bear that in mind when it comes to making decisions. And I'm going to leave to say thank you all very much. Thank you, Becky and ProComm team for arranging it. And thank you, Nabil, for once again a great presentation. That's all from me.
Thank you, Mohammed, for the presentation. I'm definitely sure we'll be reaching out to you with our clients. To all our valued clients on the call, please reach out to us. Let's help you achieve your compliance requirements with privileged access management. But as you know, ProComm also offers other solutions around data security, threat management, SOC as a service. So please reach out to us. We help you with your journeys in developing an end-to-end cybersecurity solution, and we will be able to engage and also propose the best solution for your environment. We appreciate your time. We are having another session next week where we are focusing on data security. I want to encourage you to join sometime every Friday morning. And again, we will bring CyberArk again back in the next month. And they will share also even around other things and what they see at the market and trends. And you will also be able to benefit from that session. Thank you so much for your time, and have a good weekend.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy your day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Goodbye. See you again.